Hello, my name is David. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to look at an idea of books that I'm going to try to read before the end of 2023. This is inspired in part by Michael K. Vaughan, imagining his 500 book challenge TBRs, broken by category, and those have been a delight, and partially by Sandy from Mr. Reads a Lot, who at the end of each year plans out 52 books off of her 1001 book countdown that she would like to specifically target for that next year to read. My hope is that these will not be the only 60 books that I read between now and the end of that year. But there are a couple of longer ones on here that may take quite a bit of time. But those are balanced out by some really short ones too. So we'll see how this goes. Of course, I won't consider it a failure if I end up mood reading into other ones. That's why I'm only choosing 60 here. Because I want to have that freedom and flexibility to be able to still dive into something that's calling my name. There are some series that I've started that I'd like to continue, such as the Hyperion Cantos. I've got books 3 and 4 to read of that. I didn't pick any of those for this. The Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell. I need to read books 2 and 3. I've got both those on my shelf. Not putting those on here. Because I'm probably already going to read those. Rothfuss, book 2 of Kingkiller Chronicles. Probably going to read that at some point in time. And I tried to go with 2 rules here. One, it naturally happened that I was limiting myself to 1 appearance by a particular author. There are a couple of authors that I've got a good chunk of books from. A.E. Van Vogt, Gordon R. Dixon, Edgar Rice Burroughs. I've got a fair number of books to choose from. And I could easily have filled in 10 slots for any of those authors. Heinlein. I've got a good number of Heinlein books. Bradbury. I could have easily put in at least 10 books on those authors onto this list. But I wanted to sample widely across what I currently have. You're going to see that it is the majority of this list is going to be science fiction. Most of that being the vintage type, because it's predominantly what my collection has. My other caveats, I did not include any graphic novels because I'm planning on mood reading into those. I also didn't include anything Tolkien or anything Ray Bradbury. I'm going to read stuff by both of those over the course of the year, but I'm not putting them on this list because those are going to be a given that I'm going to be reading those. Same with Edgar Rice Burroughs. Michael K. Vaughan's going to try to read every Edgar Rice Burroughs in publication order by May. And I'm going to try to continue to hit at least one most months, making my way a lot slower through Edgar Rice Burroughs. But I've got a lot of Edgar Rice Burroughs on my shelf because of Michael. The other caveat, with some exceptions, was that in general I was trying to avoid books that are book 1 in a series unless I have more than just book 1 in that series. There are some exceptions. I'll mention those as I come to them, but things like The Mote in God's Eye by Larry Niven. I've only got book 1. I don't want to read that and then be unable to continue for a while. Consider Phelps by Ian M. Banks. It's book 1 in the Culture series. I don't have the rest of the Culture series. Because I'm going to end up in a situation where, just like when I read just last week, Swords and Deviltry by Fritz Leiber. I've read book 1. I've got books 6 and 7 on my shelf. I don't have books 2 through 5. So it's going to be a while before I get back to Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, unless I decide to check it out from the library, in which case it doesn't count towards my 500. So in general, I was trying to avoid that, except in a few special occasions and a few where I do have more than just that first book. Anyway, let's get to it, because this is going to be long already, and I'm already almost 5 minutes into this. So my first pick here is Backgrounds to Medieval English Literature by Robert A. Ackerman. One that I'm sure is on nobody else's TBR for the year, but it's on mine because it's medieval English literature. I've had this for a while, and it's time that I get around to it. You know, it's got social and religious backgrounds, Old English period, and then same thing for Middle English period. English language in the Middle Ages, popular Christian doctrine, and worldview of the Middle Ages. This is 127 pages long. Obviously, it's got a lot more than that in there, because right here we have critical approaches and other appendices. So I'm curious to get around to this and see how it goes for me. Here's one of the few exceptions. Caves of Steel by Isaac Asimov. I've got this. I've got 3 and 4, I think, in the Robot series. Missing book 2. I'll probably make that exception of I'll pick up book 2 from the library to read it in order to read into the next ones. But I wanted to get to this in 2022. I still have time to get to it in 2022. We'll see. Here's one. The one and only exception to the no duplicate authors is going to be Greg Bear. Because this is Hard Fought and then Timothy Zahn Cascade Point. So this is one of those tour doubles. So these are 2 novellas. And sure, we could say Timothy Zahn's the reason, but the real reason, Greg Bear just passed away a couple weeks ago. And so I have this novella. I've got 1 book of his on my physical shelf, and I'm going to read both of those before the end of next year. Because I haven't read anything Greg Bear, I don't think. I don't think I've even read any short fiction by him. We have A Life for the Stars by Jane Blish. The Long Tomorrow by Lee Brackett. So both for Blish and Brackett, these are the only books by them I have on my shelf. And those are 2 authors that I have name recognition for. So I would like to get to something by them. Frontier of the Dark by A. Bertram Chandler. Again, this is the only Bertram Chandler book on my shelf, so I'm going to try to get to that. This is one of those series books, Rendezvous with Rama by Arthur C. Clarke. I have books 1, 2, and 3 of the series. I believe there's 4 in there, so I'm missing the last one. I figure, 1, 2, and 3 is a good start. I was going to skip this, but then I got to thinking about it. It's like, well, I've got the next 2 in the series, so why not? If I enjoy it, and I hope to enjoy it, I can then roll into the next couple of books. From Outer Space by Hal Clement, because we have Hal for the Holidays going on. This is probably going to be my December pick, sometime the next month, to join in on the folks that are reading Hal Clement. This will be the only Hal Clement I'm reading for that. They're reading like 2 a month, but it's just read what you have, and so we'll give this one a shot. We have The Forever King. I'm not sure if this is a series or not, by Molly Cochran and Warren Murphy. I'm an Arthurian fan, and so since I've got this on my shelf, I probably should pick it up and give it a read. We'll see how it goes. Let's find out here real quick. Does it tell me? It does not say anywhere in here whether or not it's a series. So, I mean, if this is when it first came out, then it obviously wouldn't mention any others. The Gordon Dixon I picked out not knowing where to start, and knowing I don't have the first book in the Dorsey series, I don't think, unless one of my hardcover collected things have it. But in terms of the paperbacks, I don't have the first book or 2 in the Dorsey series, so I grabbed Ancient My Enemy, because let's face it, that title and that cover had me really intrigued. Every time I look at this, I'm like, gosh, I want to read this. So we'll see how this goes. We have Space Infantry, edited by David Drake. So this is my choice for David Drake. I don't have anything by him, but I figure it'd be good to give him a check out as an editor and see how this goes. And it's got some good authors on there. It's got Leiber, it's got Purnell, Dixon, Drake, Bennett, Haldeman, and others. So it'll have at least something David Drake in there. Of course, I'm going to continue to explore Harlan Ellison. This is the only other Harlan Ellison that I have on my shelf. One of the very, very last purchases I made before the 500 book challenge started. Ellison Wonderland. Found this on eBay, and it is in pristine condition. So I'll be giving this a read. Finding Ellison books at a good price is hard. You wouldn't expect that. I don't know if it's because they're all wildly out of print, or if they're just that sought after. But since that, I finally came across something that was under $5 for Ellison, I had to scoop it up. So we have Day World Rebel by Philip Jose Farmer. Way towards the beginning of the year, I read Day World and absolutely loved it. And so I picked this up probably a week or two after I finished Day World and still haven't gotten around to this. So this is a sequel to Day World. So it's the second book of the Day World series. I don't know if there's more in that series after this. I won't be able to pick them up to find out. But I would like to get back into Day World and continue it because it was a really, really fascinating book. We have The Body Snatchers by Jack Finney. I believe it was Greg from Another Bibliophile Reads just reread this earlier this month and really enjoyed it. So, nice short one. All-time science fiction sensation. I enjoyed Day of the Triffids so much. Why not try this one out too? This one I've had on my shelf for a while and have been Dancing Around Death World by Harry Harrison. I know this is a book one of a series. Don't have any of the other Death World books, but I don't think I'm going to read this with the intent of moving on into the others. It'll probably be more like the Stainless Steel Rat books, where it'll be fun to just pop in and out as I have time and the ability. And so we'll see how that goes. My Heinlein pick. Moon is a Harsh Mistress. Haven't read anything other than Starship Troopers by Heinlein. I've got probably a good dozen books of his on the shelf, and I figured this is probably a good place to go to next. We have The Best of John Jakes by John Jakes. So get a good overview of Jakes as an author from his short fiction. And you'll see that repeated a couple more times. If I had a best of, then I was probably picking that up. So we have In Deep by Damon Knight. So this is 8 stories by Damon Knight. A Mile Beyond the Moon by C.M. Kornbluth. Kornbluth is going to appear again, but that's because he's was part of a writing team on another book, but not the lead author listed. So I went ahead and had him appear twice. I assume C.M. Kornbluth is a him. My June on the Range pick. Riley's Luck by Louis L'Amour. I might get to it sooner and have to read my other Western on my shelf. We'll see. We have The Many-Colored Land by Julian May. Steve Donahue praises this series up and down, and just recently praised this series. So, of course, I had to put it on the list. I've got all 4 books in the series, all on my shelf. So, I have no problem starting this because I will be able to finish the series. Another one that I'm sure is on everybody else's TBR, Chaucer and His Contemporaries by Helene Newstead. Essays on medieval literature and thought. So the reason why I hadn't read this sooner, because I picked it up and I was looking in there, it has stuff on Piers the Plowman in here, and I had not read Piers the Plowman at the time. I have since done that, so now I'm ready to read through this because I've read everything that it's talking about in here, so I'll have some context. One of the smallest books on here, Starcat World by Andre Norton and Dorothy Madley. I've held this up multiple times over the course of this. It's about time I get around to reading it. We have The Cosmic Computer Program to Rule the Universe by H.B. Piper. So this will be my introduction to Piper. We have Gladiator at Law by Frederick Pohl and C.M. Kornbluth. So this is the other appearance of Kornbluth. But I picked this mostly as the Frederick Pohl So we'll see what this is like. This is one of those exception ones. Alistair Reynolds. This is book 1, Revelation Space. I don't have any of the others in this series. But I really want to try this out. I hear really, really good things about Alistair Reynolds. I did read one ebook released by him, I think set in the same series, but a standalone that came out last year, and enjoyed it tremendously. So I'd love to give this a shot. So we have Red Mars by Kim Stanley Robinson. This is the only one I have on my shelf, but I do have the other 2, as well as this, on my e-reader. So if I read this and want to continue, I can easily keep going. We have Berserker by Fred Saberhagen. I've got a couple of different Berserker novels. I'm not sure the ordering on any of them, if I have them in consecutive order or not. But I believe this is the first one. If not, then I will substitute it for whichever one is chronologically first when I get around to Berserker. Nightwings by Robert Silverberg. I believe this is the one that I have that Tom L.A. Books said was really, really, really good. So I'm going to be getting to this. Time and Again by Clifford D. Simak. Because I've got to make Mr. Steadfast happy. And he swears that Simak is fantastic. And I would agree. After reading City, I enjoyed it tremendously. We have the best of A.E. Van Vogt. So we'll see what the short fiction is like from Van Vogt. Tristan by Gottfried von Strasberg. I meant to read this last year. I have no excuses as to why I haven't read it sooner. Life in Shakespeare's England by John Dover Wilson. So, again, I'm sure this is on everybody's TBR. For Tomorrow by Roger Zelazny. I opted to go with this because I'm probably going to still pick up some of the Amber books over the course of the year and read through that omnibus. But this is my other Zelazny on my shelf, so I'll give that a shot. Later Lives of Caesar, or Lives of the Later Caesars. So this is the first part of the Augustan history with newly compiled lives of Nerva and Trajan. So we'll see how this goes. The Algebraist by Ian M. Banks. So instead of starting the Culture series, this is a standalone. And will be my introduction to Ian M. Banks. We have The Demolished Man by Alfred Bester, which Michael K. Vaughan just reread and loved. And I loved my first introduction to Bester last year, and need to get back to this. Medieval Iceland, Society, Sagas, and Power by Jesse L. Byock. Again, on everybody's CBR. It'd probably be on Vin's. Let's be honest. Vin and I are like 2 peas in a pod on that. We have the collected short fiction of C.J. Cherry. Quarter century of short stories. So I was going to put Down Below Station and this on here, and I figured I can't make that the one exception. I'll probably still try to read Down Below Station, but this is the one that's going on the list. Because, again, the introduction through short fiction, partially inspired by Steve Donahue, because I emailed him asking for a recommendation on where to start with Greg Bear, and his recommendation was collected short fiction, and it's a great way of getting to know an author through their short fiction, especially science fiction authors. Okay, let's keep going. When the Great Days Come by Gardner Dozois. So this is actually not him as an editor, but him as an author. I'm excited to find out what that's like. 20 Years After by Alexandre Dumas. I failed miserably at continuing past Three Musketeers, so I need to go on that because Tony from An Erudite Adventure has gotten through them all and really enjoyed them. Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. I believe the plan is January. Tom from LA Books, I think it is taking us through all of Echo, but that one being the first one. I'll be joining along. Another one on every single one. An Introduction to Middle English by R.D. Folk. grammar and texts. I'm failing miserably at getting into learning Old English because it's a lot of work. And I just don't have the time and patience at the moment. So why not get a better handle on Middle English first, right? Chronicles of the Crusades by Joinville and Villehardouin. I really enjoyed the Charlemagne book, so why not try that one out? Short fiction, again, Mary Robinette Kowal. I haven't read anything by her yet, so this will be a good way of getting to know her through some of her short fiction. This is the one Burroughs that's actually on my list, but it is Master Adventure, The Worlds of Edgar Rice Burroughs. So this is, I believe, a biography by Richard A. Lupoff. Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I've had this for about a year and a half. Haven't picked it up yet. I don't know why. Darrell of Jory by C.L. Moore. I really, really want to read this. I don't know why I haven't read this. Another one that's been on my shelf for about a year and a half. I bought it with the intent of reading it. Infinite Stars. I've got another Infinite Stars volume on my shelf. The sequel to it. A lot of science fiction stories in famous universes by lots of famous authors. I need to get around to this. And the couple of times I've almost picked it up, I open it up and I see the first one's like 60 pages long. I'm just like, yeah, I'll come back to this later. Well, later's almost here. Another one I've put on my TBR and put off multiple times. I need to read this. Steve Donahue will tell me I need to read this. I hear you, Steve. Tale of Genji. I know. I need to read it. I really want to read it. That one's going to take me an eternity. The Other Eternity, Children of Time. I got this the same time I got the Song of Achilles. Haven't read either of them. Adrian Tchaikovsky. I've only read one Tchaikovsky, and that was Ogres earlier this year. So I need to get around to some more Tchaikovsky and experience him in science fiction. Next we have Shadows of the Short Days by Alexander Dan Vilhelmsson. This is an Icelandic author. I'm really, really fascinated to read this. I need to get around to doing it. A Hero Born by Jin Young. I've had this for about a year. Steve Donahue swears by this series. I don't know why I haven't gotten to it. My Greg Bear novel that's on my shelf, Hull 03. So I'll be getting to that. We have New Frontiers by Ben Bova. This is, I believe, short fiction. Yeah, collection of tales about past, present, and future. So I opted, again, for short fiction instead. Same with Haldeman. I opted for dealing in futures to try his short fiction rather than another novel. Broken Stars, edited by Ken Liu. This is contemporary Chinese science fiction in translation. We have the Science Fiction Writers Association Grandmasters Volume 1. So this is stories by Heinlein, Jack Williamson, Simak, Sprague de Camp, Fritz Leiber. I've got Volume 2 on my e-reader. I've got Volume 3 on my shelf. I'd love to get through all three. My Dan Simmons pick is The Fifth Heart. So this is a Sherlock Holmes novel. And last but not least, we have the first book of the Camlin Chronicles by Jack White. I've got all 9 of them now on my shelf, thanks to the library sale earlier this year. So this is The Skystone. So there you have it. This has gone on long enough. I'm going to wrap it up here. There's 60 books that I'm going to try to read between now and the end of next year. Wish me luck. Have a great day.